Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, keeping it strong style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, keeping it strong style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh come and hit a job out in bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is a network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to the debut episode of Keeping It Strong Style on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Donovan, alongside my co-host, the young boy, Josh Smith. Josh, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. This is crazy. We're doing this. We're recording a podcast about New Japan Wrestling, man.
That's right, man. It's time for the number one pro wrestling promotion as far as in-ring action and storytelling to be discussed on the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Lucha Underground?
So we just want to thank you guys for downloading the show. The best way you can support our show and all the other shows on our network is to subscribe to the Social Suplex Podcast Network on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Go ahead and subscribe. Leave us a rating and review and help us get over.
Going over huge.
That's right. Top talent out here. So before we kind of kick into all the stuff we want to talk about on the show tonight, since this is a new show on the network, we kind of want you guys to get to know us, and we're going to give a little background on kind of how we became wrestling fans and then how we became New Japan wrestling fans.
Well, let's start off with this. Like 2 weeks ago, the idea of this podcast was non-existent. So that's the crazy thing, like, in my mind right now, is like we're sitting right here. What did we just watch? We just watched Survivor Series, right?
Right, yes.
And we were aghast at how terrible, well, it was a good show, but how terrible that main event was. And we were just sitting there, and we were on the One Nation Radio podcast at the time. One Nation Radio, what's up? Shout out. And Jeremy just looks at me, he's like, we should just cover New Japan. That's what we watch anyways. And, I was like, you're right, man.
Yeah, because, I mean, I've been toying around with starting a podcast for a while now. And, so far all the shows on the network cover WWE. And so at the time I was like, man, I really don't want to do another WWE show. And then, like you said, I just had the epiphany, like, why don't we just cover New Japan? Like, dude, we're always talking about how much we love it. Let's talk about it.
I couldn't cover a WWE show like full time because that would require me to watch all the products. And like I catch the big shows and I keep track of what's going on. I'm not saying I don't follow WWE, but if I had to seriously watch Raw and SmackDown and 205 Live every single week, I would kill myself.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough schedule, especially when not every episode is the best and it's kind of hit and miss. So a little bit about how I became a wrestling fan. I've pretty much been watching wrestling since I was 3 years old. My grandfather was the one who got me into it. All-time favorite wrestler is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Like I've been watching wrestling ever since. I watched WWE, WCW, ECW. I watched TNA from probably like 2002 to like 2010, 2011. Watch Ring of Honor on and off, and then I really got introduced to New Japan. Like I heard about guys, and I would see guys in Ring of Honor, and I'd see people in other random promotions I'd watch growing up. But honestly, to tell the truth, I really did not start following New Japan until Wrestle Kingdom 9, when Jeff Jarrett and Global Force Wrestling promoted Wrestle Kingdom 9 in the U.S., and seemed like a pretty big deal. And AJ Styles is one of my favorite wrestlers. I think that was his first Wrestle Kingdom. And
Global Force just launched a website, or just launched their streaming. It's pretty cool. I wonder if New Japan's gonna be on it.
New Japan should buy it. But yeah, so Wrestle Kingdom 9 was kind of my gateway into New Japan. Ever since then, I've slowly gotten into it, and I've been starting to watch the big shows slowly. And then pretty much after Wrestle Kingdom 11 this year, I've been like full go. I've watched, all the big shows. I've watched the G1, all the tournaments coming out. I've been following the product pretty much full time now.
Nice, man.
So what about you, Josh? When do you start watching wrestling?
Oh, man, I literally, what's funny? I'm 29 now. 1990, for some reason, I would have only been 2 years old, but I remember Hogan and Warrior. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. So, I've literally been watching wrestling my entire life. My whole family has. My mom was pregnant with me at Cobo Hall the night that Ronnie Garvin came off the top of the cage and won the NWA belt off Ric Flair in Detroit. So, that's how long I've been around wrestling. So, my whole entire life. As far as, like, my favorite wrestler goes, it depends on what age you're talking to me. Like, teenage Josh really liked Ultimate Warrior. No one can beat that guy. Probably my older adolescence, I would say Mick Foley by far, but not Mick Foley in general, but Mick Foley as Mankind, and then as Cactus Jack, that would definitely have to be my favorite. And then as I got older, it kind of turned more from being like, who's my favorite wrestler, to just being a fan of the crap, being a fan of, the whole industry, the dirt sheets. And
yeah, that's one thing I'll say. As we've gotten older, it's kind of harder to have like a favorite wrestler, especially watching a product like New Japan, where everybody is so good and everybody's putting out such good stuff. It's so hard to just pick one guy to get behind.
Yeah, you know what? That's funny you mentioned that. If I had to really think about it, I don't know that I have a single favorite in New Japan at all. Literally, I don't. I think probably Nakamura was my favorite before he left, but right now, how do you choose between a Naito and an Okada, or between a Tanahashi and an Omega? Like, how do you do that?
They're all producing such great stuff and having such amazing matches. It's like,
I can't even say I like any of those guys better than like an Ishii or something. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's like, it's too tough. But my background, as far as getting into Japanese wrestling, I think my first real exposure obviously is like the Japanese stars coming to America. So, Muto and Liger and Kai and Tai coming into WWE, stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
And then as time went on, they started showing those clips of Mick Foley wrestling in Japan. And I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, you'd see those clips and I'm like, man, Japan is crazy. All they do is like barbed wire bomb matches over there. Like, what are they doing?
Man, those guys just wrestle on C4 and that's all they do over in Japan.
Right.
So I that was kind of my impression of Japanese wrestling at the time. I just thought it was death matches. And then in the mid-2000s, YouTube came around, so a couple things happened. I started getting really into like FMW and IWA and all these deathmatch promotions because I was like, what are the craziest matches out there? And you see matches where guys have to put their head into a tank with piranhas, and there's a cobweb of freaking barbed wire and you have to get dropped into it. Just crazy stuff. And I didn't even know how old those clips, some of them were from FMW. I didn't know because it was pretty limited knowledge back then, even for the internet. But then something else started to happen. I really started getting into UWF because I was a Vader mark, and I heard that Vader had these matches that were like real fights, but kind of not like real.
Right.
And I was
like a work shoot kind of thing.
Yeah, like a work shoot. And I didn't know what those were. So then all of a sudden I started seeing guys like Yoji Anyo and Takada and Sakuraba, all these guys in Kingdom. And I thought it was great because my MMA fanship actually drew me more towards Japanese wrestling than towards the WWE product. Even as I got older, when I was in college, I stopped watching wrestling, but I was still watching Japanese wrestling. And then on the message boards, people would say, oh, well, if you like wrestling and you're a real wrestling fan, you got to watch All Japan from the 90s. And so I was like, oh, okay, like who are these guys? I know Stan Hansen, but I don't know freaking Tenryu or Baba or, not that they're wrestling in the 90s, but it started with those guys, and then Jumbo, and then Mizawa and Kawada and freaking everybody over there. And once I started seeing those guys doing the four corners of heaven matches and getting dropped on their heads and the crazy lariats and the way that they built the matches.
Lariato.
I never watched it live while it was going on, but that's what fascinated me about Japanese wrestling was I realized these guys are better workers across the board than what they're doing in America. I would say that probably with Wrestle Kingdom 9 opening up the gates to American fans and our exposure of what's going on over there, you see a renaissance of people following that product, and it even inspired me to go back, and I've been watching over the past couple of years a bunch of 80s matches, and seeing what happened prior, because I love 80s wrestling, and all that, and the juniors division and all the different faction
you're definitely the historian of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. You know all the old school stuff, and at some point in the future episodes, we're definitely going to go back and cover some old school New Japan stuff.
But yeah, I mean, it brings us to our current point where, I don't think very many of us on our network or very many of us in our wrestling groups that we're a member of were actively following the careers of Okada and Tanahashi. We heard about these guys,
right?
But nobody until Axis came out. Now we can see these matches, and they got them up on New Japan World, and then there's Pirating Eyes and all these different stuff.
Right, it's all over the place.
Right, so that kind of brings us to where we are today, to where it's you got to cover this. It's the best wrestling on the planet. Right.
And, if you're not covering it, I find it hard for people to have an opinion about it if you don't watch it. I know there's a lot of people out there, they hear about the 5 and 6 star matches and they kind of roll their eyes, yet they've never watched the product. Or if they do watch it, they just want to be against the crowd and not, buy into what's going on. I mean, you watch those matches, it's hard to say that they're not amazing.
Better than all the other matches that have happened.
Right. Right.
I mean, everyone's got their own everyone has their own opinions when it comes to this sort of thing, and I'm, if someone says, "Hey, I like Taker and Michaels better than Omega Okada," whatever, that's their opinion, but when a match has universal appeal and universal acclaim the way that the Okada Omega series and actually this entire year of New Japan wrestling has had, and the previous years, you can't snuff your nose up at that when everybody who's watching it is literally saying this is the best product, this is the best in-ring product that's happening today, and it's been that way for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, who knows how long.
Right. And one of my goals for this podcast is I hope that we kind of motivate and inspire people to start watching New Japan on a more regular basis. And so keep listening to this show, and we're going to get you hooked on New Japan, guys.
Guys, you won't regret it. Trust me, it's worth it.
And, the first show they should probably check out is the biggest show of the year, which is called Wrestle Kingdom. It's New Japan's Wrestlemania. Happens every January 4th. Technically next year, 2018's Wrestle Kingdom, looks like it's going to be just as big as ever. The ticket sales are kind of out of the roof right now.
We should probably start right there. I think we'll do some more eventually on this show. If you guys keep listening, we're going to do some in-depth coverage on Wrestle Kingdom, especially since, it's coming up. But there's a lot of news going on right now, a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Right.
But these Wrestle Kingdom tickets are insane, Jeremy.
Right. So from what I've seen, they've sold about, 20,000 tickets right now?
Well, they came out on Twitter, and even just this, the news had already broke last week, but the their head of international on Twitter just tweeted, and he said that they're up 180% in pre-ticket buys over any previous pre-ticket year that they've ever done. They've already sold out 20,000 seats. Last year they only did 26 and change.
Right.
So they've almost eclipsed it, and it's not even December, or it's just now December.
Yeah, just December. And they're already projecting to go past that, and a lot of that is part of the big main event of Okada versus Naito for the IWGP World title. That's a pretty big match, but also the X factor this year has to be the Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho match.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing about Omega and Jericho right now is there's a lot of angles to it, but I mean, one of it is the international appeal. They have never sold as many tickets to U.S. fans as they are right now.
Right.
And it actually got to the point where, I could look this up, but we'd have to find out. But I was reading about how the dealer who you can go through to get New Japan tickets, he sold out. And right now, they don't have any more reserved. They're hoping eventually to, if you're a U.S. fan, you want to go over there to make more available, right? But right now, if you're here domestically in America and you're not in Japan, you can't get tickets to this show. That's how many they sold out.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, like, this Omega Jericho match, you know, it's definitely going to bring in more U.S. eyes, more eyes from Canada. You have the hottest star in New Japan right now, or one of the hottest stars, Kenny Omega. He is the current IWGP United States champion. You know, he's had all these 6-star matches this year. And he's going against Chris Jericho, now calling himself the Alpha Chris Jericho.
When did that start?
That started just for this match, just playing off the whole Omega thing, Alpha and Omega.
Did you? So when you were watching the last pay-per-view, was Power Struggle, right?
Right.
And did you see that live, or did you watch it the next day? What was your reaction?
So overall, I thought the Power Struggle pay-per-view was very good. I watched it like either the next day or a couple days later. So the Jericho news had already been out there before I even watched the pay-per-view. But watching it and just seeing how the fans reacted to Jericho when he came up on the screen was huge.
Was this one of those moments where Jericho, was there any kind of oh, that's right, they had the Twitter beef.
Right.
Yeah.
So this actually, you know, you can trace this whole Omega Jericho thing back, you know, earlier in the summer. There's a podcast out there called Killing the Town, which is hosted by Lance Storm and Cyrus, also known as Don Callis, and they did a show with Jericho, Cyrus, and Omega.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, and they also did a Talk as Jericho episode with all three of those guys as well.
That was right before Dominion, right?
Right. So and that was the first time that Omega met Jericho. So you got. Oh,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so you got to think that's where the seeds got planted. Like they met, and they were probably like, you know, what if we could do something? And then you fast forward now to the last couple months, they've gotten this huge Twitter war.
Well, Jericho's doing, next year he's doing the cruise with all the Ring of Honor guys, and they might have New Japan guys, and obviously there's talent that's shared between the two of them. Young Bucks, obviously one of the main draws, is going to be on that card, and I think that's part of where a lot of it started, was people were saying, is Kenny Omega going to be on this cruise?
Right.
Because I want to go on it.
Right.
And then you start seeing Jericho saying stuff on Twitter about how he didn't respect, basically that Omega might be a great talent, but he's working these small indie federations.
He's never worked in the big leagues where the big boys play.
And, with that being the case, I mean, obviously Jericho comes from the same background as Omega and the rest of these international guys who've gone over to Japan. I mean, that's where Jericho made his name. So it was pretty suspicious hearing Jericho saying, he didn't respect these guys. They hadn't done what he did. It's like, oh, is this a character?
Right. And well, Jericho did a good job working, because from my Twitter feed, I saw a lot of people that were like, this is dumb. Why are they feuding? There's no way they're going to ever wrestle each other.
There's no payoff.
Yeah, there's no payoff to this stupid Twitter feud. This is dumb. Why are they doing this? And they worked us all. Because even me, I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to happen. Jericho's always said that he's never going to wrestle for anybody.
That's what I thought. Besides
Vince McMahon. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of agreed with everybody. Like, yeah, this is kind of a waste of time. Like, this match is not going to happen. Like,
well, even like listening to the Observer, live and Observer Radio, they didn't think that this match was going to happen this way either. They were saying, oh, well, there's a possibility because he's doing the cruise that they could be building towards a match next year. Nobody, and I mean nobody, I don't care. I didn't hear anybody on any message boards.
Nobody called this.
Nobody was saying, oh, they're going to do Omega and Jericho at the Tokyo Dome.
Right.
So it's funny because Jericho is so famous for having these returns that nobody knows about, or maybe there's build, but it's really, we don't know who it is for the most part. And in this instance, he was able to do one of those famous Jericho returns, but still build it at the same time in the public eye and get enough heat behind it so that when they announce the match, it's like, holy crap.
You're right. It was awesome. I think the setup was perfect too, because something you guys will learn as you start watching New Japan on these big pay-per-views, after a title match, usually somebody comes out and challenges a champion, and most times that's how you get your number one contender. And Omega had just defended the title against Trent Beretta, and it was a
great match.
Yeah, very great match. Defeated Beretta in his first big heavyweight title match. And so, Omega was out there in the Young Bucks.
You didn't think that Yoshihashi versus Omega was a big match?
What's a good comparison for Yoshihashi to compare to WWE so people can kind of understand?
Oh my God, I don't know. Yoshihashi, guys, as much as I love New Japan and as talented as Yoshihashi is as a worker, I cannot stand Yoshihashi. They need to get him into an actual gimmick or do something with the guy. I can't think of a good comparison.
I'm trying to think of a WWE equivalent, but nothing's coming to my mind. But pretty much Yoshihashi.
Maybe Ziggler, I don't know.
No. Yoshihashi, he's like a low mid-card guy. He has good matches every once in a while, but there's no real steam behind him. And for him to have a U.S. title match against Omega, it was one of those matches you're like,
Roman?
Oh. No, not that bad. But once they announced Omega versus Yoshihashi, we're like, well, duh, Omega's gonna just jobbing this guy.
Jinder without the title.
There we go. So Omega defeated Beretta, and him and the Young Bucks are out there cutting a promo, and they're, Omega's waiting for who's gonna come out and challenge him, and nobody came out. So like, oh, I guess nobody wants to challenge me, and they're getting ready to leave the ring. Then the Jericho video pops up on the big screen, and that's a video that's been going around. And
how did you react to it? Like, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, because the news broke before I was able to watch it. So when the news broke, because those shows happen in the middle of the morning for us.
You guys freaking ruined it for me. You guys posted it on we have a group chat. You guys posted in the group chat, and I was like, wait, grainy video, Omega, Jericho. This is really happening. Like, my God.
Well, I didn't post that. I think it might have been Rich that posted it, but I woke because those shows happen in the middle of the morning over here for us. So I woke up to all this news about Jericho.
Let's be clear here, guys. I'm just going to let you know we're going to be covering New Japan, but I work at 9 to 5. I'm not going to be watching any of these cards live ever again. I did it for Wrestle Kingdom last year, and as proud of a moment as it was for me, it actually ruined my sleep schedule for months. So I'm too old to be doing that.
Right.
But
we will not be watching anything live, but the way we tape our shows, it'll be fine. So
we'll get you guys the best coverage we can. It's going to be dropping once a week, and we'll cover what's current. We'll cover maybe stuff from the past, whatever we really feel like, because we're the top talent.
Right, we're the ace of podcasts.
We're the ace of podcasts. We're going to dictate the card, and we're not doing no jobs.
Exactly. So back to Omega Jericho. So Jericho laid the challenge down. Omega accepted, and now we have this big U.S. title match for the Tokyo Dome, Wrestle Kingdom 12 on January 4th.
Well, it's so smart because, is it a big match in Japan? It absolutely is. You've got two of the best gaijin, most well-known gaijin and most talented gaijin that have ever competed there in a dream match. And
for those of you who don't know, gaijin is the term for a foreigner.
Right. So, with that being said, is this the main event in Japan? Absolutely not. And I don't think it will outperform Okada and Naito, but at the same time, you have a main event that can draw in the outsider, because how many people that are hardcore fans that have, they know about New Japan, they know what's happening, but they're not going to tune in for Naito and Okada, right?
Right.
Because they're like, oh, it's just overhyped, just another match, blah, blah, blah. But when you see Jericho's there, who doesn't want to see what that is?
Right.
It's funny because Jericho said that his inspiration for this match was the buy rate that Mayweather and Conor McGregor did this past summer. And this has very much got that same appeal. The idea there was we can draw MMA fans to watch this boxing match. and this is kind of very similar to that, we can draw these North American and European and New Zealand and Australian fans, and internationally we can draw fans who know Chris Jericho to a product that maybe they don't watch, and increase revenue, increase interest. I mean, this is the first time since the early 2000s they're talking about selling out the Tokyo Dome.
Right. And something very interesting about this whole thing, Wrestle Kingdom 12 is not on pay-per-view. The only way to watch it is subscribing to New Japan World, which is their version of the WWE Network. And, there's been a lot of question if that's a big mistake, because there is so much interest in here. They could possibly make more money on pay-per-view.
Well, there's a couple things with that. People say that pay-per-view is dead, right, in the States and all that. But when you have an event, and I'm not saying that this would do a huge buy rate by any means, because no Japanese wrestling fight or match or pay-per-view card in the past ever has done extremely well. But there have been financially successful ones.
Right.
And they want the idea, I think the thinking that they have is we would rather people tune in and buy the New Japan World subscription so we can up our subscription rate than put it on pay-per-view. But the reality is WWE is actually this year outperforming previous year's pay-per-views with an increased viewers or membership to their network.
Right.
And it's because there's a whole fan base of people that are just not going to get a subscription.
Right. There's like an older fan base. I think they don't really trust streaming services, and they're like, yeah, I'm not signing up for no monthly streaming service. I'm just gonna buy my old school pay-per-view like I do every month. And so yeah, there's still a large amount of people out there who are paying $60 for a pay-per-view and not signing up $9.99.
How many people watched Wrestle Kingdom 9 on pay-per-view and didn't get the New Japan World, and because they saw it actually turned around and got it? You know what I mean? Once you get exposure to that product and you're like, okay, how else can I see it? Well, there's not going to be any future pay-per-views. This is one-off. All right, well, I got to get this streaming service now.
Right.
So I do think ultimately it's a lost opportunity. Jericho was pushing, apparently the reports were that Jericho was pushing really hard to get this on pay-per-view in the States, and it's not going to happen. Access, though, and if you guys are listening, Access TV, if you have that, check your cable provider. They run New Japan, a canned show for New Japan every single Friday night.
Right. They kind of show the highlights from all the big shows.
Right. And they've got, instead of having Kevin Kelly and Don Callis do the commentary, they've got Jim Ross and Josh Barnett, which is great. Aside from their job this last year at the G1 Live Special, when they're in the studio, they're a really good team.
Right.
But last year, they did cover the G1 a week later. And they...
Right. They've been getting really good at covering shows a lot faster. Like we mentioned, the Power Struggle pay-per-view just happened. In the last few episodes on Access, they've been covering those big matches that happened at Power Struggle.
Yeah, so I mean the deal there is last year they broke it up I think into 3 or 4 episodes, and they covered it each week. They just did a whole month of Wrestle Kingdom. There have been reports that they're any day now that the heads over at Access are about to announce something big related to Wrestle Kingdom. Does that mean that there's going to be... They did cover the G1 special in the USA live for the first night. I can't imagine that they would do it live, of course, but I mean, if maybe they're just hyping up the fact that they're going to announce the same thing they did last year, they're just going to cover it for a month. But I mean, what are the chances that maybe on a tape delay a few days later they'll do the whole show as one show? I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of different things they can do there. Yeah, the tape delay, maybe even the next day or something, some kind of big special.
But it wouldn't make sense if they did that, because to me it would... If they were going to do that, they might as well have just done the pay-per-view in the first place.
Right. So, yeah, we'll have to keep our eyes on what's going on with that whole Access TV deal.
Going back to Omega and Jericho, though, there have been... I mean, we can't read Japanese, so I don't have a way to look into Tokyo Sports and see what the Japanese wrestlers are saying, except for whatever gets transcribed and comes over here. We don't have subscriptions to Weekly Pro Wrestling over there, but so I don't know how well they're hyping some of the main event feuds like Okada and Naito. I mean, they've done a fantastic job, within the storytelling of the card, obviously, and right now, like and we're gonna cover the tag league in a future episode, but right now during the tag league, they've got matches going on between Naito and Okada, but we don't really know in the media how much they're hyping that match. But with Omega and Jericho, they're doing a fantastic job right now.
I mean, and both of those guys are great at social media and just the promos they're doing. And we just rewatched Kenny Omega's one of his promos at the press conference, which is one of the things I love about New Japan. They treat this like a real sport. They have these big press conferences, and they really promote this thing. And Omega, we just watched a promo of him at the press conference, just talking about pretty much putting himself over what a big star he is, and that he's going to be the key to their U.S. expansion.
He even started saying stuff like, we know what New Japan wants and how they want guys like Okada to bring it to the mainstream of America, but it's not happening. But you've got me, your god of wrestling, Kenny, the cleaner Omega, bringing it to the forefront, and he talked about how they're selling more tickets than they ever have before. Did Okada Naito draw well a couple years ago when they had their 2-match series? Yeah. But I mean, I didn't see that match selling out the Tokyo Dome.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I think to the Japanese fan, that is the main event. To me, that's still the main event. But,
yeah, that's definitely,
but with this card being anchored down with this other dream match, it does remind me kind of like it's a Hogan versus Rock.
Yes.
It's a generational dream match for that audience. And, we know Omega, and, it's pretty obvious, like, Omega's the star more than likely, unless New Japan throws something fishy, like something crazy in there. He's going to probably beat Jericho, I would suppose.
Yeah, I'd be highly surprised if Jericho leaves Wrestle Kingdom 12 with the U.S. title.
But, Omega was saying stuff along the lines of like, hey, if you want to take wrestling to the next level, you want to be a true international star, you have to follow Kenny. You got to put the belt on Kenny and let him beat everybody. But some of the stuff that's been going on, Jericho, he did an interview. He said that, and I don't know if he's working.
I think he's working. He said that he's never seen a Kenny Omega match.
He's a pretty busy guy, man. There's a chance that he's never. Do we think he really never saw Omega Okada? With all the hype it got, the 6-star match, you think he didn't watch it?
I don't know. I'll have to go back and listen to his Talk as Jericho, because I'm pretty sure he mentioned something about it back when it came out. But
he's come out and said, I've never watched an Omega match. I'm about to. And he said, we're both at the level where I know. Jericho's so confident that let's say it was true and he hasn't seen Omega wrestle before, he knows that he can get a great match out of anybody if he really wants to. That's how confident he is. He's been doing this since when did he break in 93?
Right.
So he's one of the all-time greats. So of course,
he's coming off one of the best years of his career.
I do wonder though. There's the intrigue. Like, is there gonna be? What if Jericho, like, he's gonna be over in the Tokyo Dome, but like, what if he doesn't know how to work to that crowd anymore? And, like, what if it falls flat? I don't know. Ric Flair went over to the Tokyo Dome, and it was kind of flat, if you've ever seen that match. Like, there have been Gaijin workers who are big stars in America gone over there and fallen flat in their face because it's different. I don't know. It's exciting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that whole match plays out. Something else Jericho did, he created a parody shirt called the Alpha Club. The playoff, the Bullet Club. Kenny Omega is the leader of the Bullet Club. So Jericho just doing a little joke with his Alpha Club t-shirt.
I'm sure we'll see some of those Mania weekend.
Yeah.
Different indie shows. I'm sure that's coming. And all the proceeds to that, I don't remember which charity, but I know all the proceeds are going to, I think, like a cancer research.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, he's not profiting off those. I'd have to look into it and see what it's going towards. But the cool thing though is they're really hyping this up. They're doing interviews, they're talking about it. If you haven't seen the hype video that just came out from New Japan on like YouTube, it's freaking epic. This is going to be an awesome match.
There's so much, like you said, so much promo, so much fan art, just so much going into this match. This match is definitely going to be a key to their U.S. expansion and really growing that brand and getting more, U.S. Northern Americans to watch the New Japan product.
So, talking about that, there's, obviously there is a partnership right now between New Japan and Ring of Honor. It's been going on for a few years now.
Right.
They started out doing like the what was it? Global Wars. Global Wars here in the U.S.
and War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. I think it was Global Wars first, and then War of the Worlds. Is that right?
I believe so. It's either it's one or the other. It's flip flop.
I always mix them up. But then they started sending Japanese guys over there. Some of them they even sent on excursions, and so there's a partnership there, which is awesome. So we get to see some of these guys come over and do tours in the States. We actually went just a few weeks ago. We were in Lakeland. We got to see the Young Bucks
and Kenny Omega, and it was amazing.
Who else did we see that was Japan? I mean, we saw Hangman Page. Obviously, he's on the roster. I'm trying to think. It was mainly Ring of Honor guys.
It's mainly just the Bullet Club guys were the New Japan guys that were featured.
Cody.
Oh yeah, Cody.
Yeah.
Well, another Bullet Club guy.
We didn't see any Japanese stars on that card, but obviously there's a partnership there. I mean, Kenny Omega is not a Ring of Honor guy.
Right. He's contracted to New Japan, which is why you don't see him as often in Ring of Honor as you see the Young Bucks and Cody and Hangman Page. Those guys are Ring of Honor contracts, so the Ring of Honor is their first priority. Which is why you don't see that. Sometimes you don't see the Young Bucks on a lot of these like Road 2 shows because they only come in mainly for the big pay-per-view shows.
Right. And so with that being the case, there's three. I mean, there's going to be other cards that they're going to share talent. But there's three big upcoming cards that we probably want to talk about or at least touch base on. So, it's not three. It's just two. I'm like, for some reason, I'm thinking, I don't know, but. There's the news that just broke recently that the Young Bucks and Cody, I mean, this started out, they're planning to self-finance. Hopefully, the goal is to self-finance a show somewhere here in the U.S. that will see and break a record of 10,000 domestically. Right.
And how this all got started, somebody on Twitter asked Dave Meltzer if Ring of Honor could sell out a 10,000-seat arena. Meltzer said he didn't think so. Cody saw that response and took it as a challenge and wanted to prove Meltzer wrong.
There is 3 shows. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought about it. There is 3 shows. Okay. I wasn't wrong, guys. Sorry about that, Jeremy. Go ahead.
You shouldn't. Come on, young boy. You're always right. But yeah, so Cody wants to prove Meltzer wrong and pretty much prove the world wrong that another promotion that is not the WWE can draw a 10,000-seat show in North America. And they've already started looking at a few locations. I know
they were looking at like California, I think Georgia,
Ontario or Toronto, I believe, one of those.
That would be Canada, though.
Yeah,
just North America.
Just North America.
Okay. I've heard a few different places. I don't have them all off the top of my head, but they're looking at different markets. It'd have to be the right market to do this.
Right.
But the reason we're bringing it up, obviously, Cody, the Young Bucks are both. Well, Cody's the Ring of Honor World Champion. The Young Bucks, international stars. But these are guys that are shared between Ring of Honor and New Japan. And you would have to think that if they're realistically, and they've already talked about bringing Kenny in to do this, but if they're realistically ever going to hope to do a 10,000-seat show, they have to have New Japan star power.
Right. I mean, they pretty much need help from both New Japan and Ring of Honor for talent.
Well, they're going to have to get approval from Ring of Honor to even do it at all.
Right.
So, I mean, it's still early. We don't know if this show's going to even happen. But
well, I mean, Cody...
They sound pretty serious about it.
Right. Cody tweeted... Let me see if I can find the tweet real quick.
I read an interview that he talked about this, and he was like, if the wrestling fans are just served the same product with the same recipe that they always have, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, he's like, this industry is not going to go anywhere. And he's like, I'm the son of the American dream, so I'm a dreamer. And he got offended when he heard from Dave Meltzer that they can't draw 10,000. Cody's been to the big shows. He's been to the big dance, what I mean? He was never a main eventer in WWE, but he has been around this industry. His dad was one of the greatest, bookers and, drawing stars of the 70s and 80s. So, I mean, it's not, like, unfathomable that he would have aspirations to do something that changed this industry. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I can't find the tweet, but pretty much he said something to the fact like, we don't have, we can't confirm like a date or anything, but this is pretty much happening next year. Like they're pretty much dead set on this show happening next year.
The interesting thing about it was I was listening to okay, let me just tell you guys, this is how big of a freaking wrestling dork I am. So I'm driving home from work the other day. I'm listening to Observer Radio, and I hear Dave Meltzer talking about this, and he's talking about the show, whether it's going to happen or not. And he's like, I don't think that any promotion outside of WWE has done anything close to this in 17, 18 years, since 2001, WCW. And I'm driving home with my buddy who's not a wrestling fan. We're carpooling from work, and it's my car, so we have to listen to wrestling podcasts. And he's like, I don't think any promotion's done this since, before he even got the words out, I was like, WCW. My buddy just looks at me like, how did you know that? And then he was like, God, I don't think even in their heyday, ECW never did over, and I said, 6,000. and then Dave goes 6, and my buddy's like, you know that? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, and then I don't think TNA's done what? And I was like, 7. And then he's like, 7,000. And then he was like, he's like, and TNA Ring of Honor's only topped out, and I was like, 35. And he's like, 3,500. So it's pretty terrible that I actually know what the top cards of these different various.
And this is why I call Josh a historian. He has all the facts and history. Like, you have any argument that you need to solve, call the young boy and he'll fact check it for you.
Why am I using my intellect and my great memory for wrestling trivia facts? How is this going to benefit me in the long?
It's going to benefit this podcast.
I need to better the world. I need to go back to school. I don't know.
No, none of that. I found the tweet from Cody.
Okay.
So he said, Pro Wrestling Sheet posted the exclusive report about the 10,000 seat event. And then Cody retweeted and said, we can't comment officially until we confirm the location, but we are far enough in the process to say it's happening in 2018, and we are swinging for the damn fences. Dare to dream.
I think they're calling it All In is the name of the show, like preemptively. That's what I heard. Anyways, I don't know. I didn't see that they called it that, but I heard that the report was that they were going to call the show All In. Because for them, it would be on. They'd have to self-finance the show. Sure. But the interesting thing is, I was listening to The Observer, and Dave Meltzer was like, you know what? If they did do something like the Cow Palace, they can shoot for 10,000. If they get it, that's phenomenal. If they don't get it, they don't actually have to do it for it to be a huge financial success.
Correct. Like, I listened to that show also. I mean, if they did 5,000
for 4,500
and something else, because even if they don't sell 10,000, they will make up the money on merch. Like that,
they're killing it on merchandise.
The Bullet Club fan base, I mean, they are like the biggest merch buyers there are.
Let's just clarify that the internet wrestling community, independent scene wrestling fans are huge marks for merchandise.
Dude, I own 5 Bullet Club shirts. I own the original Bullet Club shirt, the American Nightmare, the Villain Club, the Young Bucks, and the Kenny Omega shirt.
What are that?
And right now I'm wearing a Los Ingobernables t-shirt. Tranquilo, that's right. So I'm one of the biggest marks there is out there.
What did those run you? Like 25 each?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, Hot Topic has a deal where you buy one t-shirt, you get the other one half off.
Oh wow!
So I'd pick up 2.
We should get Hot Topic to sponsor us for the plug that you just gave.
Yeah,
I want to go there now.
Yeah, Hot Topic. Buy your New Japan gear at Hot Topic. So yeah, I mean, and speaking of Hot Topic and the t-shirts, all the Bullet Club merch, they are now the #1 selling product in Hot Topic. They surpassed that pretty popular cartoon show called, I think it's Ricky and Morty or whatever it is, which is a pretty big deal. I hear a lot of people watch that show.
I've been told that I would like that show. I work so freaking much, and then I spend the rest of my time
watching wrestling
or trying to, that I don't know what Rick and Morty is, but people were saying that there's no way that anything was going to surpass them in merchandise sales. I mean, the Young Bucks their shirts are outselling Rick and Morty.
Right.
It's insane.
Right. So they're number one in Hot Topic. They're also Pro Wrestling Tees. They put out like a top 10 of the month.
Pro Wrestling Tees is awesome.
They have pretty much all the Bullet Club shirts pretty much take up the top 10. All the different versions of shirts they have.
It's kind of like Kenny Omega's Year of Wrestling. All the top 10 matches of the year are Kenny Omega's. All the top 10 shirts of the Young Bucks.
Right. And I mean, they also sell stuff on Ring of Honor store. Young Bucks also have their own stores like YoungBucksMerch.com where they sell stuff. So they are just racking it in when it comes to merchandise. So that would be a huge part of this 10,000 show. It's the merchandise sales that they would make on this thing.
Well, here's going back to what we were talking about before is like, okay, so they're going to need the right market and the right timing. We could talk about some of the prospective people that might hypothetically be on the card in 2018. We don't know here in a moment, but the two cards that I wanted to talk about that are going to build momentum for this hypothetical show. One, this coming year, New Japan is returning to America. Okay, when are they doing that? That's in March.
March, yes.
Okay, they're not. Are they going to Long Beach? They're going to California.
I'm not 100% sure. I believe it's Long Beach again. Let me see if I could.
But they're doing a bigger venue.
Yes.
So I saw that, and the fact that New Japan is coming back, and they had way more success than they thought they were going to when they did the first show.
Right, they sold out pretty quickly for the G1 special in USA last year.
Yeah, so right now they're planning to this year hypothetically open up an office in Los Angeles and then a New Japan dojo, so that if I ever pursue my dream of becoming a pro wrestler, I can go get worked like a real young boy.
All right, so here's the details. March 25th, 2018 in Long Beach at the Walter Pyramid. Which is where the show will be held.
I think the Walter Pyramid, if I remember correctly, it said something like 5 or 6.
Yes, 5,000.
Okay, so they're
going to pretty much double the crowd from last year.
Yeah, they did like G1.
Yeah, right? The G1 special had just over 2,700 fans in attendance. So the Walter Pyramid holds 5,000.
So if they're running a show in Long Beach that seats 5,000, I believe that it's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know market research. I shouldn't assume that they're going to sell out, but I mean, they're so hot right now. I wouldn't really be surprised if they did. I mean, in San Francisco, there's indie shows that are running 4,500 for the Cow Palace shows and stuff like that. So, what are the chances that the international fan base that's here in America wouldn't all show up? I mean, there's going to be so much hype around that show.
Right. I mean,
at that point,
you're going to have people. I mean, Americans going into that show. You're also going to have the Japanese fans flying over,
and this is going to be coming hot off the heels of Wrestle Kingdom, okay, and then we're going to be going into New Beginning, and then the New Japan Cup and all that. It's going to be one of the hottest times of the year before the G1 later in the year. So I can't imagine that the product isn't going to be more popular by that point.
Right.
So
and then that all rolls into Wrestlemania Weekend. Definitely, the biggest, wrestling week for wrestling fans, and all the guys from the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We are all planning to be at New Orleans.
We're going to be having a Social Suplex panel and discussion.
Yeah. So if you see us out there, say hi to us and chill with us out there in New Orleans.
We're going to be doing a QA at WrestleCon. We're already booked for it. I think we go up right after Colt Cabana's Art of War. Is right? That's
Art of Wrestling
podcast. He's going to do his Q&A, and then we're going to take the stage. He's opening for us.
We're a pretty big deal if you guys didn't know. But seriously, so there is going to be some New Japan presence at WrestleMania Weekend, even though they did not want to do a New Japan branded show during Mania Weekend,
that's very interesting because for the independent scene here in the U.S., it is pretty much the biggest weekend. Even though many of these different promotions run their own major card, quote unquote, their own version of WrestleMania. Their biggest attendances are going to be at WrestleMania. Their biggest merchandise is at WrestleMania.
Pretty much every independent organization is going to be represented somehow.
Right, and things are different now because if you've gone to one of these WrestleMania weekends, they've really expanded. Progress is there now. Rev Pro runs a show now, so you've got a British presence. Crash is going to be there this year. They've got tons of lucha guys.
There's Evolve.
Yeah, Evolve, obviously, and I mean, WWN and WrestleCon put on these big shows and super shows and all that. So the idea that, and obviously Ring of Honor does Super Card of Honor, and we're going to talk about that, but the fact that there was rumors that several different promotions came to New Japan and said they'd like to put on either a super show or like some sort of co-promoted presence to boost those independent scenes, but also to give New Japan a foothold here in America because they are looking to expand and they wanted nothing to do with it.
Right, and that's
they don't even want to be there.
Right, like they don't feel like they need the rub of Wrestlemania Weekend.
They don't need WWE's rub.
Right, they don't need to be with WWE. Like they can do their own thing. So I mean, I think it would be great if they did do a show.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
But to say, I understand kind of why they don't want to do it. But there will be New Japan presence that weekend. One of their top stars, Hiroshi Tanahashi.
He's doing the Rev Pro show.
Right, we can pretty much compare him to like a John Cena.
He's like John Cena mixed with Shawn Michaels, mixed with Fergie and Jesus. I mean,
so yeah,
he's the ace.
Yeah,
we're the ace of podcasts, but he's the ace
of
life, of humanity.
So he's gonna be at WrestleMania weekend. He's gonna be wrestling at the Rev Pro show, and he's also going to be wrestling at the Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor. His opponents are not announced for both of those shows, but it's just a pretty big deal that Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to be wrestling in the United States, and it's going to be must-see. I know we're planning on seeing Tanahashi definitely at Rev Pro. We're still debating whether we're going to Ring of Honor or NXT, but I think we're leaning towards Ring of Honor because, it's not that often you get to see Tanahashi do his thing live. Yeah, I could always watch NXT on the network, or there's going to be plenty of takeovers throughout the year, but Hiroshi Tanahashi only wrestles in the U.S. once or twice a year, so you gotta see that man live when you have the chance to.
I mean, he's done shows in the U.S. for Ring of Honor. He's done some of these Global Wars / War of the Worlds, whatever they're called. He's done them, but I don't think he's done very many big shows in America, like on a pay-per-view like this. The interesting thing about this show, to me anyways, was when we were deliberating, do we go to NXT because we know it's gonna be great, or do we go to Ring of Honor? I started looking at the venue. They're going to the Lakefront Arena in New Orleans. It's now called the Uno Lakefront Arena, and that thing seats 10,000. That's the capacity. With the capacity is 8,933 because it's a basketball arena, but altogether, if they do it for wrestling, which they've already mapped out, it's a 10,000 seat capacity arena.
So I mean, it could be possible, but that Young Bucks and Cody, they get a 10,000 show
after the fact,
right? So
I mean, the reason that we bring this up, well, obviously, and we're going to talk more about Super Card of Honor here in a moment, but you're going to go from obviously freaking Wrestle Kingdom, all right, and all the publicity that's going to generate. Then they're going to do a New Japan show in Long Beach. They're going to do 5K, and then they're going to ramp up, and who knows what they're going to do at WrestleMania. They could do 6,500, 75, whatever. It's almost like they're building the momentum for when 2018 comes around. They do this all-in show, and they've already got over these hurdles. They're building momentum to where they can do this 10,000 seat show.
I think that Super Card of Honor show is going to be a good predictor of how well the Young Bucks and Cody's show is going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to that show, a couple things. So there was reports recently that there's been stuff on Twitter where on Twitter where the Young Bucks have mentioned CM Punk. Now we know CM Punk is obviously he's under contract with the UFC, and there's actually reports coming out right now that he's going to be. I forget where the card. I think the card's in Detroit this weekend. I'm going to watch it anyways. Yeah, I think is it in Detroit?
I think so, yeah.
He's going to meet with Dana White, so they're talking about another fight. So we're not talking about a return to wrestling, I don't think, anytime soon. But there was reports a few months back that they were talking about if they could add anybody to the Bullet Club, it would be CM Punk. I didn't know he was close with Nick and Matt Jackson, but apparently they're boys.
Right, I mean, I was trying to think, no, Punk was already out of Ring of Honor by the time the Young Bucks were there, but I mean, they kind of rolled the same crowd, so it's not too surprising that they kind of know each other. But CM Punk, his name has been thrown out a lot in discussion of this 10,000 show. A lot of fans have called into the Wrestling Observer Live and said, you know, Cody and the Bucks, they need CM Punk on their card to help draw 10,000.
Well, it's kind of like this, you know, WWE. How many top stars that have left are still like top guys, big names, you know, big names. We're talking about like at the top drawing power, and the guys that aren't wrestling that you think of immediately are Bryan and Punk.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are guys that move the needle. In the interview that I read, Nick and Matt Jackson said that Punk told them he wasn't thinking about coming back to wrestling anytime soon, but he did say, and this is what was quoted, he said, "If I ever think about it, you're going to be the first guys I call when that happens." So he's not talking about calling Vince or Paul. He's talking about calling Nick and Matt.
Right. And you know, in the wrestling business, they always say never say never. You never know what's going to happen. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Punk does get the itch, and
even if it was just for an appearance or an angle, or he's the special guest referee.
Right, or he's like the manager for the night for the Young Bucks match.
Something. The other name that keeps getting thrown around, and I think a lot of this at this point is just speculation, but there's so much speculation around it, we have to talk about it, is Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon.
Yes.
So obviously there have been reports even recently that have been coming out that Brie Bella just talked about it the other day. He's married to Brie, right? That's
yes,
okay.
Yeah. Brie mode.
And she said that he's cleared. Every doctor that they've been talking to has said he is fit to wrestle.
Right.
Not only that, but that he is better off now after this break because of all the hyperbaric time chamber, Goku, and Vegeta.
Healing he's been doing.
All the sensu beans he's been eating.
But the most interesting thing about the Daniel Bryan thing, a lot of people, and including us, they want to see Daniel Bryan wrestle guys like Omega and Okada. But Daniel Bryan said that his goal is to return to a WWE ring. Right. Daniel Bryan does not want to leave WWE. He wants to be cleared so he can cut back and continue his run in WWE.
Right, and I mean, that would make the most sense because, I mean, they would let him work a part-time schedule at that point. That would make sense. But hypothetically, this guy loves wrestling so much, and it is his passion, so much so that if it comes down to it and WWE won't clear him, which right now they're evaluating, from what Bree said, they are evaluating the findings of the other doctors because they're in a tricky spot. Even if he is cleared, how does that look to the investors? How does that look to the shareholders?
Right.
And the advertisers? Can they bring a guy back that they publicly said had a lesion on his brain? Can they take that liability?
And which that too, I've heard there's been kind of like some misdiagnosis about that lesion on his brain, or the term they used wasn't exactly what they thought it was.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're unclear about. And here's the thing. All this stuff is posted on, wrestling dirt sheets and newsletters. We have no way of knowing what is 100% true and what's not.
Well, we know what Daniel said.
Right. Well, we know what Bryan Daniel says, but what other people report about his health, we don't know. We have to pretty much go... Daniel Bryan's pretty much the key source to his own health. But, there's a lot...
He's come out and said, basically, if it's going to jeopardize his future and they tell him he can't do it, he won't do it.
Right.
But if he can do it, he's gonna wrestle.
And that's right. And all these different doctors are saying he can do it and that it won't damage him. So...
And what that means, though, is, let's say WWE doesn't clear him. We're going to see that guy at the CMLL anniversary show doing a beard versus mask match. We're going to see him in the Tokyo Dome at some point. What are the chances that if they want to sell at a 10,000 seat arena, that they get one of the biggest draws in America today to come back and maybe make his return, maybe against a Kenny Omega, or what if he wrestled a Tanahashi or an Okada? You know what I mean?
That would be huge for Daniel Bryan and just for the wrestling world in general.
Speaking of that, so we have to assume at this point, if they're going to do this show and they're self-financing it, you know, all three of those guys are guys that are booked heavily and strongly in Japan. I don't see Japan not having some sort of co-promotion or hand in the involvement of this big show, especially with them trying to expand in America. So what better way to get exposure for an Okada or an Ishii or Michael Elgin, Naito,
Ibushi,
the LIJ, and the Bullet Club, and, you know, who knows? Minoru Suzuki might be one of the top guys on that card. Goto.
What about Toru Yano?
How about Bone Soldier? Book Bone Soldier. That'll put butts in the seat.
Yeah.
But you know, we're talking about this because there's more news that's going to be coming out about it. It's way off in the future, but it's an exciting time because you've got these three American shows, and we're Americans, and we love New Japan. We're going to be covering what's going on over in Japan, but this is the current news that's going on right now with the cards, basically, and the expansion. The U.S. expansion is super exciting. And
another part of the U.S. expansion, New Japan just recently launched a U.S. YouTube channel, and they're going to be posting, you know, a lot of the post-match promos from their shows on this YouTube channel, and they're going to have the English subtitles.
That's going to be worth its weight in gold, because as a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, like, I love it, but it's one of the only reasons, well, not one of the only reasons, but one of the main reasons I love Axis is because they translate those interviews after the match, and I'm like, oh, so that's what, you know, Ibushi was saying 3 years ago.
Right. So yeah, they translate everything, and so this is going to be another key into you know, the U.S. fans understanding what is happening, and you know, and I'm sure they're going to take advantage of all the guys they have on the roster to cut promos on this YouTube channel.
They've got a lot of promos on here right now. I'm just looking. They've got the World Tag League promos going on. Are these I haven't even really started to look at these. Are these translated already?
I think they have like the English subtitles on there.
That's awesome.
So yeah, let me just.
And they've got promos on here with Kenny Omega. They've got New Japan on the road with like Will Ospreay. This is right.
So
is awesome.
Yeah, I just pulled up one of the videos here, and yeah, it has the English subtitles on here.
So we can watch this stuff on New Japan World and then bring it up on YouTube and watch the post matches. That's awesome. Yeah, they got the Jay White Switchblade promo, the Chris Jericho Tokyo Dome promo. This stuff is freaking awesome, guys. Yeah. You know, with that being said, if you aren't subscribing to New Japan World, I mean, it's $9.99.
It's actually yen. It's actually 99 yen, but that's like $8. It's like $8.50 US dollars.
They've got everything translated to like English. It's not always the best translation, but I mean, you can navigate that website. 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was, you couldn't really. You had to really know what you were doing to get through it.
Right.
They made it much more fan friendly. They're trying to market this thing to English speakers.
And a lot of their big shows now always has English commentary with Kevin Kelly and Don Callis, aka Cyrus, and they do a great job commentating that stuff.
This is the best Kevin Kelly's ever been.
Yeah.
And they got Cyrus, and so like, if you're like, hey, I can't really get into it because there's not a story or I don't understand it, you know, I like to watch New Japan with the Japanese commentary.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it's pretty much like watching soccer with the Spanish announcers. Like, the Japanese announcers, they get so into it. Sure, you don't understand what they're saying besides Lariato and Suple or whatever else they say. Right. But you sense their excitement, and you get you more into the match. So, you know. But
even with that being the case, if you can't get into it because of the language barrier, they're overcoming that. They did more English shows this past year.
They're breaking that barrier down. And, you know, you mentioned about the whole story thing. You know, there are stories in New Japan. Like every show I've watched, there's been some kind of story.
Oh, you know what's crazy, Jeremy? Their stories are coherent. They don't treat us like we're idiots, like certain guys didn't feud 5 years ago or something like that.
Right, dude. The booking makes so much sense. It's very easy for you to understand. The stories make sense. Like,
I mean, I would assume, to be honest with you guys, there's probably fans out there listening to us right now. If you're listening to this, you probably looked for New Japan, and you're probably a diehard fan. You're like, who are these guys? Why are these guys trying to explain to us? We know how great New Japan is. But this is for those guys out there or girls who are listening right now who are like, should I give this a shot? And,
I'm
sure we want to expand this thing to people that don't watch the product.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of the fans in the Wrestling Squared Circle, which is our Facebook group, and a lot of the people that follow the Social Suplex Podcast Network, I'm pretty confident that majority of those people are not following New Japan regularly, or have kind of been on the fence on whether or not they should try. So, like I said earlier in the show, it's our goal to try and get more people to watch New Japan.
It's cool too. They post Ring of Honor shows that have the New Japan guys on them. Sometimes they'll even just post the selected matches. They won't post all of, like, say, Final Battle or something, but they'll post the ones that maybe, like, Takahashi or Kushida were involved in, which is awesome. And then they cover Select Rev Pro, which is like a dream match promotion over in
the UK.
In the UK. And they have select shows that they do with them, like, once a year. And those are English-speaking, too. I mean, there's a lot of English content now on this channel. It's freaking awesome.
Right. I mean, there's pretty much, at this point, no excuse for maybe not having time to watching New Japan. So I think
that's gonna cover everything for the first episode of Keeping It Strong Style, the ASA podcast.
Yeah, so we just want to thank you guys for listening and downloading the show. You can follow us on Twitter at KI Strong Style. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeremy L. Donovan. You got a Twitter, Josh?
We're going to have to work on the young boy. He's not really doing the whole social media thing right now, but, I think this is awesome, the privilege to kind of, we're just marks at the end of the day. We know that we're just fans, but I'll have to get my social media game up if I really want to do this thing big. But we've got other episodes that are coming up. We're going to be covering the World Tag League. We're going to be covering the World Tag League.
The Young Lions Cup.
We got the Young Lions Cup.
Ring of Honor Final Battle.
There's other news, any breaking New Japan news that comes up in the following weeks. We're going to be covering. We're going to be giving health updates on, like, Shibata and Hanma as that sort of stuff breaks.
Right.
Wrestle Kingdom's on the way. We're going to be covering the Road 2 shows. And all throughout the year, we're even going to do cool stuff, retro shows. We might be doing some Joshi coverage. So you guys let us know what you want us to cover. If you're listening, you can Jeremy's Twitter handle.
Yeah, you can tweet me at Jeremy L. Donovan. You can tweet the show at KI Strong Style. You can tweet at Social Suplex. And
was there more? My bad.
I was gonna say, if you like the show, leave us a rating and review at the Social Suplex Podcast Network. You can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcast will be at.
Also, most of those sites will only allow you to do 5 stars. We know that this is a 6.25 star show, but we're going to be limited to the Dave Meltzer Classic 5-star match rating. But giving us a 5-star, it's not for our benefit. It's for the benefit of expanding New Japan. There's other guys covering this as well, and I mean it's awesome. We need more people covering this product and getting the word out about it. One last thing before we go. Well, 2 things. One, we are having I know this is brand new, but we are having a New Japan awards show at the end of the year. We're going to be dropping the survey in various different places. It'll be covered on Reddit, Wrestling Squared Circle.
Yeah, go ahead and if you're on Facebook, join our Facebook group. It's the Wrestling Squared Circle. Facebook group. We have threads up there from Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, NXT. I plan to start doing more.
We got a guy that shows up every week and asks if we're gonna watch TNA Pop.
Yeah,
I think he's a bot, but he's there.
And I'm planning. We need to start doing more New Japan threads.
But we're gonna have to all coordinate it because no one can stay up late enough to watch it. But
I mean, we can just post a thread on there, and everybody can post their thoughts in there.
And if you're watching, because some of you are gonna find this show based on the survey that we're about to drop, because we're going to drop it in different forums, different sites. Do us a favor, vote on that thing. We want to hear your voice. This isn't a show where we're going to override you and say, hey, we're not like Jeremy. We're not like James Boyd and Rich Latta over there on One Nation Radio, who, when they do their award show, if they don't agree with you guys, they're going to just override it.
Right.
We picked the... We picked the different topics with a lot of thoughtfulness. We're going to cover that in a future episode too. But let us know who you think was the best of the year, and then we're going to post it. Hopefully these awards get, a few hundred votes or something like that.
Right.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for another episode of Keeping It Strong Style. You can check out the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd.
SMC Podcasts with Rance Morris and
Carl Urban and Caleb Baldwin. And we also have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show all the way from Scotland. Also, Rich and James host a One Nation Live, which streams lives every Sunday from our Facebook group on the Wrestling Squared Circle. So yeah, man, there's a lot of shows for you to check out and enjoy. So,
and the last thing before we go, shout out to Rich Latta, 2 Nation Radio. No, I'm just playing. One Nation Radio. He's one of our administrators on the group. He recorded our song free of charge on short notice. So he's giving back to the business.
And also shout out to Mike Fergus, who's did the logo for Keeping a Strong Style.
Mike, you did awesome work, man. I don't know you. I've never met you, but I mean, the work you did on our logo, it's freaking awesome.
And he's also done the new logos for One Nation Radio and all the other shows on our network. So shout out to him, free of cost.
I promise you, at some point, if this show ever makes a dime, you will get something from us.
We will CTC, cut the check. And so I think that's going to wrap it up. Until next time, good night and goodbye. Bang!